The woman in the middle there with spectacles on.
Aren't most of the banks private sector, and they haven't done very much to grow the economy?
Yes, and yes, the woman up there on the gangway.
There is this misnomer that we're like Greece. Our government owns billions of shares in Lloyds TSB, 43%, 84% of RBS and Northern Rock. Now, if our financial institutions are the envy of the world, surely at some point when these are going to regain their market value, this is going to wipe out so much of this debt and this deficit. OK. Max Hastings.
Well, I totally... Well, you can easily get a clap in any audience like this, including from me, if one suggests hanging some of the bankers. But we do need...
Great idea.
We do need real jobs in this country, and not the sort of pretend jobs that Alastair Campbell, the government that he was involved with, created over so many years. Oh. One of the reasons we are so deep in the doo-doo today is because the last government created hundreds of thousands of public sector jobs which we can't afford. And yes, some of those jobs are going to have to go. And I personally enormously admire the coalition for getting to grips with the beginnings of this. Nobody has any scale. You talk about $6 billion in cuts, making a real difference to $160 billion annual deficit.
The deficit will come down if the economy grows.
If you believe that $160 billion is just going to vanish,
no, the point is it will shrink more quickly.
Your government effectively wrecked the British economy, and it is going to take an awful lot of pain to bring this back. And the one thing we have to be honest about is this is all going to hurt. And we are going to have a bloody awful few years. But that was down to your lot.
The Institute...
Absolutely.
The Institute for Fiscal Studies said that these cuts are 1/10, I think, of what's to come. Do you agree with that?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you said that when the economy picks up, there's no need for the cuts.
No, I'm not saying there won't be need.
You went into the election saying there was a need for cuts.
There will be a need for cuts, right. and Alastair Darling set out a 4-year budget deficit programme that I think would work. And also, as I did say to Susan earlier, the first figures that were inherited by David Laws when he went into the Treasury showed actually the deficit had fallen more quickly than had been predicted.
Well,
my point is...
Well, only because the tax revenue went up because people wanted to pay themselves income before the 50% rate came in. There was an artificial surge. It's going to go down again now they've done that.
Well, so you say.
Well, mostly what David Laws got was a message that said there is no money. Good luck.
I know he did, and I'm not suggesting that was the wisest piece of handover correspondence. However, to come back to the point, I also think I've really got to hit back at this idea that when Max Hastings talks about all these useless, stupid jobs that have been created, we're talking about nurses in hospitals, we're talking about teachers in schools. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. A lot of the investment that's gone into the public services is people doing real jobs for real people. And what's more, the idea...
Yes, but we can only have the public services we can afford.
Correct.
And what your government has done has spent billions, tens, hundreds of billions of money that we don't have on public services.
In part to the crisis that the young lady at the back talked about. And when John Redwood sits there and pretends that he calls it profligacy, this country, under Gordon Brown and Tony Blair, had 10 pretty good years of prosperity. Then we had the international financial crisis. A lot of difficult decisions had to be taken. They cost a lot of money. And because of those decisions, there are 500,000 people fewer out of work in this country than if we'd have listened to them and gone with their free market approach and just let the thing rip.
We had the longest and deepest recession of the major countries thanks to your incompetence.
The woman there on the gangway. Yes.
Why do we need more managers in hospital than we need medical staff? It's ridiculous.
OK, we won't go into that because we'll do that at some other point when we get into specifics. The woman there, you, madam, yes. Yes, you.
If Alastair Darling had this 4-year plan after the election, or coming up to the election, why didn't he put it into place long before now to get the deficit down long ago?
Could it be because there was an election coming up?
I think so.
No, he had a plan.
No.
Look, he set out how he intended to reduce the deficit.
Why didn't he do that before?
No, he set it out to do it over 4 years.
He cancelled the public expenditure review because it was too embarrassing. We all know that, Alastair. Don't be silly.
David, what's worrying me about this conversation?
I've been called silly by John Redwood.
I'm glad I'm sitting between you two.
We're the new centrists, David.
God, it's like being with a lot of alpha males sort of out there with their antlers low.
So you're an alpha female, so you can cope, Susan.
Can I just say, what really worries me is it seemed to me during the election campaign, all three parties, and I include mine, didn't come clean about the real impact of the cuts that would have to happen to deal with the deficit. Because it's not just to deal with the economy recovering, there's a structural deficit.
Very briefly, why didn't your party come clean? Your party, which you're so proud of and loyal to, why didn't it come clean?
I think we got caught up, along with the others, in not wanting to paint too black a picture to the public.
All right.
And it's important we don't continue it now, and I think it's important that Labour finally come clean about the risks that we're facing.
We move on. Thank you very much. We move on to another topic. Karen Young has it for us. Karen Young, please.
Will the government's proposal to award outstanding schools academy status divide education to a two-tier system?
This, of course, refers to Michael Gove's letter or email to all schools saying they can become independent of local authorities and, if they're competent in the government's view to do it, and pick up between 10 and 12% extra funding that would otherwise go to the local authorities. Max Hastings, is it going to create a two-tier system for education?
It would be nice to think that if Michael Gove is right, it offers this country and our children and grandchildren the best hope that they've had for many, many years. Now, every government for the last 30, 40 years has failed with education, and we have to face that. John Redwood's government failed, Alastair Campbell's government failed. They all failed. They all wanted to do the right thing, but they couldn't figure out how. What we do know about what's happening at the moment is that what's going on now isn't working, that our children aren't getting the education they need and deserve. We've got to try something radical and new. And I personally believe, I have a lot of friends who are always saying, oh, I'm not sure about this coalition, and I don't know whether these Michael Gove ideas are going to work and so on. All I know, I think sometimes my trade, the media, is sometimes accused of being cynical. We have to sometimes have hope. We have to hope that Michael Gove does know what he's doing and that these ideas are going to give a new start to school. What we do know for sure is that what's happening now isn't working.
OK. I just have to say we had more questions on this tonight from our audience here in Gravesend than on any other topic. Alastair Campbell.
The answer to your question, will it create a two-tier system, is yes. And what's more, I think that is the purpose of these proposals. I think the Tories, what makes me Labour...
You began.
Tony Blair began the Academies programme.
A mistake.
Because he wanted to raise the schools that were being left behind at the bottom, and he had considerable success in that. What Michael Gove has explicitly stated is this is about rewarding the schools at the top, most of them, by the way, already in local authority, some sort of control, and therefore that makes a nonsense of his claim that local authorities can't deliver on education. But the other point about this, first of all, Max sits there, he lives down in his ivory tower, wherever it is, and he sits there and says, everything Labour has done is terrible. 69% of the schools in this country outstanding or good. The debate back in 1997 when Labour took office was whether you could actually get rain coming in through the roof. It was class sizes. It was the state of the buildings. We've had the biggest school rebuilding programme, and if they go ahead with their ludicrous free schools programme, the money will come from the schools rebuilding programme to pay for that. So I think Michael Gove's policies are misguided. They talk about freedom, fairness and responsibility. The schools are not free, the policy is not fair, and the policy is wholly irresponsible.
But your government created a school system in which O-levels and A-levels are the paper on which the certificates are printed.
OK, John Redwood. John Redwood.
Bilge.
No, I think we have a very divided system at the moment, thanks to the last government. We do have some privileged young people whose parents can afford to send them to extremely good schools, and then we have a lot of children going to state schools that don't get anything like the same quality of education. And as someone who came from a council estate background, I think we need many more ladders of opportunity for people who don't come from high-income families.
And that's what good schools can do.
And I think good academy schools can do that. Now, I entirely agree with Alastair on this, that we need to make sure we promote the schools that aren't doing so well as the ones that are. That is exactly what Michael Gove intends to do. He's accelerating the good-performing schools into academy status because your government didn't do that, but he is going to work away on the other schools that are or can be academies. And above all, you see, with the Liberal Democrat people in alliance, we are going to increase the amount going to the schools who are taking more children from low-income families, and surely that is a good idea.
Liberal Democrat people are your allies.
Your friends,
Yes, in my allies, yes.
your bed partners.
All right, the man in... no, I go to the woman up there in grey, and then I come to you in red there. The lady... Yes, you, madam.
We're very fortunate in this area. You don't have to have money to have a good education because we've got brilliant grammar schools.
OK.
Well,
and you, yes. You, sir.
I think it's completely wrong to blame Labour all the time, because it was them who actually got education into a good standard. That's why we have so many people going to university these days.